So today I'm going to be playing with this piece of rainbow obsidian and starting a pendant on it, and I'm also going to start playing with this Holley blue heart and make a pendant out of that as well. So even though these are completely different size cabochons, the thickness of them is basically the same. So I'm going to use the same bezel, the thickness of the bezel, or the height of the bezel, actually I should call it that. So here's an 1/8 inch, and that's going to be way too small when you try to put it around. Of course I can't do that without two hands, but when you try and put it around the stone, it's not going to be tall enough to be over the edge of the stone. So that's why I'm going to use 3/16. I usually try to cut my slabs at 1/4 inch, and by the time I'm done with them as a cabochon, 3/16 is perfect. So let me get these started, and I'll bring you back when I have some progress. So here's the bezel wire wrapped around the Holley blue. It's a loose wrap, and what I'm going to do is cut it a tiny bit longer than I want so that I have room to file it down and make the edges straight so that I can solder it together. Now here I've got the wire stretched around it, and as you can see where there's an overlap, I'm going to cut just enough to leave me room to file, and so I can get this to have the proper size. So what you want is to have a perfect seam where there's no air gap in the seam where the two pieces come together. And I need to align this a little bit better, but it's really close so that when I solder it, it's a solid band. Okay, let's see if I can do this. My seam is right here. So what I want to do is paint some flux on here. This is probably way too much. And I want to make sure I don't create a problem. And then I have these little itty bitty pieces of solder, and I'm going to try and get 2 of them on there. We'll see how well this will go. Apparently I moved my camera, so let's see if this will work. I'm going to hold my flame away from the piece so that the solder doesn't jump, which it kind of sort of did. So now I need a solder pick to get it back into position. My camera's not cooperating. And the solder's melted, but it hasn't flowed. Here we go. Okay, let's see if we can get this one to flow. I've already put flux on there, and I've got a couple pieces of solder on there ready to go. Try out the flux, come in closer with the flame, watching the solder bits, and hopefully we'll be able to see them go. They're getting very close. They started to go. There we go. Go into the seam. There we go. And that should be it. So now I need to clean up this little bit of solder residue on both of these. I'm not sure if you can tell, but there's a seam there, right there where my thumbnail is. And hopefully you can't see it from the side. Just a little bit of filing. Now the next thing I need to do is check to make sure it still fits around my stone. And let's see how well we did. Nice and tight, but not too snug, because at some point the stone has to go in from the top. So if I make it too tight, I'll have a hard time getting the stone in. But this is just right. Slides right over. And here's the piece around the rainbow obsidian. The seam is over here. The one thing you want to do when you're placing your seams is on a long side. If you place it on a short side, or like in the case of the Holley blue, if I were to put it here, that would be a problem, because when I go to set the stone, the seam will split. So you want it on a long side. Like you can kind of see it right there. Eventually you won't be able to though. And this is the same way. It's down here somewhere. So anyway, and now the next step is to pick out some backing plate and get the bezel soldered to the backing plate. So the Holley blue is small enough that I only need to use 24 gauge backing, a backing plate, but the rainbow obsidian, mind blank there for a second, is larger, and so I'm going to need at least a 22 gauge, because if I try to put it in something smaller, the backing plate has the potential of melting down, because I've got to put a lot of heat on it to get the solder to flow all the way around this ring. I don't know if it's going to show or not, but I've drawn a line around it in pencil, and you can kind of sort of see it, and that's going to be the backing plate that I'm going to cut out for this little heart. Okay, perfect. I have a little bit of room around all the sides that I'll trim off later, and I haven't cut out too much of the silver backing. Because this is such a large stone, it's going to eat up quite a bit of this 22 gauge, but that's what you have to do. So I've drawn lines here where I'm going to cut out for the rainbow obsidian. So this guy is like right to the edge. I hope I didn't cut it too close, but I think it's okay. I see a little bit of metal outside every edge, so we'll find out. This guy, I got plenty of room. Now you notice that little light showing underneath there. When I go to solder this, I've got to make sure that's gone. I have to have a nice good seal along the bottom edge, or the solder won't flow. But I'll get to that in a couple minutes. Okay, I've got the backing plate painted, the heart in place, and that 3 little chips of solder. So now I'm going to heat it from below and try and get that solder to flow all the way around. Now, I don't want to get too close with my flame, or the piece will get too hot too quickly. So that's why I'm keeping some distance. And hopefully we'll be able to see the solder flow. Moved out of the way, darn it. But I think it's still got enough in there. This is called a solder pick, by the way. See, I don't like the fact that it's getting red hot like that, but come on. There. Hotter than I liked, but it'll still work. Just means I'm going to have some fire scale later. Okay, this one's going to take more heat. So I've got the torch turned up a little bit higher. Hopefully you saw the solder melt and flow around the seam. Okay, let's see if I got the bezel to attach all the way to the backing plate. And what I'm going to do is hold it up to the light, and what I'm looking for is light underneath the edge of the bezel, and there's none coming through. So that's what that's good. That means the solder flowed all the way around. Kind of hard to do with one hand. Now these are still a little dirty. I need to put them back in the pickle. But I wanted to make sure I didn't have to do any more soldering before that. Okay, now I want to trim off this excess here around it. I'm not going to do the middle yet. I haven't decided what kind of bail I'm going to put on it, but I will trim around the outside of these and get them closer to the edge. And then I'll use my metal saw, and then I'll come back and clean it up with this file. So I got the majority of it trimmed off with my metal saw. Not worried about those little tips. I'll take those off with the file. Same with this one. I'm purposely leaving a little bit of an edge here because I'm still deciding what I want to do with it. But now it's time to hit it with the file. Okay, I've got the bezel cups filed down to where I think I want them, and now what I should do is put the stones away in a safe place until the bezel cup is finished, because there's no reason to have it laying out where it can get damaged or scratched or broken and lost, that sort of thing. So I'm going to put them in a little baggie and set them aside until I finish the setting, and then when it comes time to set the stone, we'll dig them back out. So ordinarily, if you wanted to test a stone to see how well it fit in your setting, you would put some dental floss underneath, and so you could lift it back out. Now I did this on purpose. I put the stone in the setting even though it's nowhere near time to set it. And so now there's no dental floss under there, so now I've got to figure out how to fix it. But what I'm going to do is drill a small hole in the back, and then I can push the stone back out from behind. And as you can see with these pencil marks on here, I intend to cut that shape out anyway. So in this case, I'm not hurting my setting by having to put a hole in it. And sometimes you have no choice. If you mess up, then you've got to put a hole in it to get it back out. The other option is to try digging it out, and you might end up scratching the stone or breaking it, or ruining your setting. So I'm going to go drill a hole in it, and then I'm going to cut the rest of this out as well, because this is it's called piercing, and I want, because this is a translucent stone, I want the wearer to, or whoever, to be able to view it all the way through the stone, so you can see the rutilated quartz inside. So as you can see by my fingertip, hopefully through the stone, I drilled almost all the way through the back, but stopped short. Well, I guess I went through a tiny bit, but that's okay. So now I can take a pin or something and push it through to push my stone out. And as you can see, I was able to push my stone out, so now I can get it out of the setting. And I have a small hole. Now what I'll do is feed my saw blade through there, and then I'll be able to cut out the whole center of this piece. And I'm going to do the same thing with the heart and another piece that I'm working on that you haven't seen in this video. So here I've got my saw blade threaded through the hole, and I will just start sawing away. As you can see, I've gone all the way around. I just left that little piece on the end. Basically, this is ready to come out. Sorry. This is ready to come out, and then I'll have a hole. Now obviously I need to take the blade back off of my saw so I can get that out of there, but that's normal. Now I've got the piercing done, and once the stone is in it, then well, one, I can easily take it back out, but you can also now, if I can get it in there with one hand, you can see through the setting, and depending on what kind of material the person's wearing or whatever, it'll show through just very nicely. Now in this case, this is rutilated quartz, and it's very translucent material, so it works with a pierced setting, and that's what this is referred to as, a pierced setting. And now I can just push the stone back out and finish sanding and polishing this, and I need to attach a bail up here as well. So I added a little setting for a cabochon, come on, focus, at the top, and then a little ring to add a bail, which is going to be this little guy here. So now I just gotta get it all sanded and polished, and then we'll set the stones. This is all sanded. Let's take it to the polisher and shine it up. Then we can set the stone. Alright, I got the setting all shined up. Now it's time to get the stone set. Alright, the stone's in the setting. Now I need to use my bezel pushers to push the bezel down and actually hold the stone in place. So in a way this is like putting on a tire. You go around every so often and push it down, and then now I will go back and push down the high spots and just keep working my way around until it's all scrunched down and around the stone. Alright, the second round is done. Now I'm just going to go around and keep pushing it down until it's all the way down, all the way around. Alright, now the bezel's pushed smooth all the way around the stone. The hard part is right at the top and right at the bottom, because you have to compress the silver smaller than the rest of the oval, I guess. Now a little bit of cleanup and more polishing, and this thing will be ready to go. Alright, push off the buffing wheel. Let's see if I can do this with one hand without breaking it. Alright, I've got the stone set and the bale attached. So we have a Holley blue heart 20 by 20 and a blue Australian opal 6mm as an enhancer, set in sterling silver.